Hello, hello, Lisa Shiro coming to you from K Counseling and Anxiety Treatment. So, I treat anxiety disorders quite frequently, and one of the things that we know about anxiety is it's created in the brain. It's not like this thing that comes and just gets you. It's actually coming out of our brain. So, because we know it's created in our brain, sometimes medication is often prescribed. And they come in the form of what we know as benzodiazepines, which is a really fancy classification of drugs that might feel more familiar to you if I say words like Xanax, Valium, Klonopin, Ativan, etc. So these are fast-acting anti-anxiety drugs. So not always the healthiest for long-term use, and you want to run that by your prescribing authority about long-term use and some of the complications and side effects and risks. So that is one method of treatment. But often a psychiatrist won't recommend medication unless that person is also getting therapy, and that's where I come in. So I am a mental health expert as well as a coach and consultant, and I get to help people who feel really stuck say no to that inner critic and yes to their inner rock star. And oftentimes, when we have anxious thoughts, it often has to do much more about like the filter through which we see this thing called life, how we experience it. And whether or not a person is on anti-anxiety meds, it's good to know kind of what's going on. And so I am fascinated by the brain, and I hope you are too, because you got one. We've got these brains that they're so busy doing so many things, and one of the things that we know happens in the brain, because we've done functional magnetic resonance imaging, which is fancy phrase, we've done some brain scans. We're able to see what's going on. So for example, when a person is worried about future, a lot of that what if place. I know I've been there, have you? That what if place, that tends to take place more in the frontal lobe region of the brain. Issues like phobias tend to take place in what we call the anterior cingulate, which is close to the frontal lobes of the brain and kind of in that same region. So things are happening in different areas of your brain because your brain thinks about them differently. And our brains like to stay busy, don't they? Have you ever experienced that? Like we try to quiet ourselves down at the end of the day, we're busy doing all of our things we've done for the day, then we lay down and we have a heck of a time going to sleep. Our brains like to stay busy thinking. So, given that medication is sometimes an option for some people, there are other people who absolutely refuse to get on medication. They really want to just hammer this out and figure out some tools and techniques. And so what I wanted to offer tonight was just some suggestions on other ways that you can combat high levels of clinical anxiety. And I'm talking about the kind that's debilitating, not the kind that is helping you save your life. This is the kind that's debilitating because we get stuck in a loop, a thought loop, if you will, where there really is no danger, but we've set it into motion. You get it? I mean, I've so been there at some times in my life, where we can just think ourselves and get ourselves pretty worked up. Well, that's not real helpful, because most of us are not in real danger. But we all know, look, anxiety, the goal is not to get rid of anxiety. Anxiety serves a purpose. It's how we survive. If you get close to the cliff of the Grand Canyon in Arizona, I mean, you get really close to that edge, maybe your heart starts beating, right? Anxiety starts going up because you don't want to fall. Anxiety's saving your life. Rattlesnake slithers close by, you want your heart rate to get up, and you want your energy to be to get ready, right? To get the heck out of Dodge and get away from that rattlesnake. It's saving your life. Unfortunately, because we have old brains in this new digital age world, a lot of the things that we think about can cause us fear, which translates into danger, and are really in no danger. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips that are quite helpful with these kinds of things. One of them is I consulted recently with a medical doctor, and what I found was that this medical doctor shared with me that by and large, anxiety is often associated with low iron. So, friends, if you are somebody who has chronic, debilitating anxiety, I would encourage you to take a look at what's on the end of your fork. And if you're paying attention to that, and you're like, yeah, I could probably beef up on anxiety. There's a lot, or beef up on iron. There's some ways you can do that real simply, just by simply eating better food. And those oftentimes are things like cream of wheat is high in iron. Things like beef, spinach, leafy green vegetables. That's one way to do it. And another thought too is if you're not taking a probiotic, you might want to consult with your doctor and consider getting on one, and here's why. Your serotonin, the vast majority of your serotonin, that feel-good hormone that gives us confidence, that's associated with the opposite of depression, that hormone's made in your intestinal tract. And so if your gut health isn't right, you're not going to be creating enough serotonin. And one thing we do know for sure is people with high levels of anxiety, that chronic, debilitating, dysfunctional anxiety, are almost always not producing enough serotonin. So get the gut health right. Get that on board. Your gut is your second brain. I hope you found this really, really helpful tonight. Knowledge is power, my friends. Share this with people who you know and you love who need to hear this information. And be sure and turn on your notifications and subscribe so that you get more notifications from K Counseling. I go on a couple times a week usually, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on my patient load, but to provide some content-rich tidbits that you can use in a practical way, in a healthy way. After all, if we can calm the mind, we can calm the body. And you so got this. This is Lisa Shiro, over and out.